Okay, so the simplest definition for to fall, or the fall as it would be, is to digress from the original Christos divine blueprint. Okay, the emphasis here needs to be on blueprint because this construct is a program. I know that may seem kind of odd to some, and especially those that hold on to a particular system of belief, especially within the religious area, gets pretty offended when they hear things like this. But the truth is, this is a program. This is a holographic experience. It's a complex mathematical program, and it is unfolded through the consciousness of source. But the way that it's done, it is done through a structure known as the partikai. And that particular unit or structure holds within it the intention or the program for this construct. We're referring to a blueprint or a very complex mathematical program. And we're going to get into the definition of what the Christos is. In fact, within the group, you're able to go through the resources and find this out for yourself. You don't have to wait for me to, finally get around to it. But that being said, let's take a look at the fall and see what Keylontic Morphogenic Science, or KS, or Keylonta, or the Freedom Teachings, as it would be, communicates concerning what the fall is. When the precise mathematical geometrical instructions for perpetual motion of the original creation program, that is the Christ code, from source is altered or modified in any way, that is known as Anti-Kristiac expression. The self-regeneration abilities, that is perpetual life, of the manifest forms, you and I and everything else, is interrupted, leading to destruction of the corresponding matter form via self-annihilation of the partikai units. What is this saying? If you alter the program in any way, modify it in any way, it basically shuts down. There's no more perpetual life. There's no more energy source. And what happens is the partikai units, which everything is composed of within this holographic construct, they begin to annihilate. In other words, they start to break down, decompose. There is no more perpetual motion taking place. Therefore, things decay, self-annihilate. So, this being an anti-Kristiac expression that results in the failure of the program or its shutting down. This is also referred to as being Anti-Kristiac Metatronic Coding. I want to stop here for a second and reflect on popular culture. Metatron is an archangel. It's not a robot. Although in popular culture, you have these identities created through these characters as fictional beings and so on and so forth. It's the whole propaganda aspect behind this. And trust me, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And what I mean by behind the scenes, I'm talking about within areas of frequency that earthlings cannot comprehend, but they can be influenced by. Have you ever thought of the possibility that most of the thoughts that go through your head are not even your own? If you were to be able to think clearly and have just your own thoughts, you wouldn't have all that traffic going on. It would be clear, and your intentions would be clear, and they would be in the moment. They wouldn't be sporadic and have all this traffic going on, multiple thoughts, and sometimes really stupid things flying through your head, and you're going, where did that come from? And people would say, well, it comes from programming and yada yada, and they start to get all, egg-headed about it and think they actually know what they're talking about. The truth is, that's not it. If you understand what this construct is, you understand that the design of it, and you understand the fall, you understand everything involved with this, then you get it. Because then you know it's a matter of manipulation for a particular agenda. Because if the construct doesn't give you that energy that allows for perpetual life, perpetual motion, constant energy to regenerate, right? To live forever. That's the original program design. But if it's not giving you that because it's been altered, as it would be, you're going to be looking for other sources of energy. And that's exactly what the agenda is, because the overall agenda, and this is not something I was taught, I knew this a long time ago. You can only be here for so long until you start really wising up, okay? That's the reason why the DNA template, which is the holographic template, has been altered and things cut off where current's not able to flow through it, which shortens the lifespan of the incarnation and so on and so forth, is purposely done so that you don't become wise to what's going on. Because the time you figure things out or start to figure things out, if you're looking, that's if you're looking. It's usually too late, dollar short, day late type of thing. And that's intentional. Because if you stay here long enough and are looking and seeking, you're going to find the truth. The objective is for you not to find the truth because they want to keep you dumb and keep you a usable resource. From the time of the Great War, you have beings going out into the construct looking for conquest in order to perpetuate their life. What is so ironic about this is that what they're experiencing and what they've forgotten is that this construct is within the source consciousness field of the prime creator who created it. And they're seeking as if they're outside of it. That's just so strange, isn't it? Altering the precise Krist code encryption configuration of perpetual motion and eternal life breaks the link with Source's infinite energy supply. Since the modified coding cannot receive any more energy directly from Source, now it's a limited supply of energy that remains. That is to say, remains within its own, which is known as the shield template, functioning as a black hole. See, this is where it leads to becoming a black hole system. I'll repeat that. The energy that remains within it, its own shield, the template, functioning now as a black hole system, right? That it has to suck the energy from other systems and other things, and progressively it self-consumes. Therefore, it has what is known as finite life. So when it falls into this system completely, it's on its way to oblivion. There is no recourse at that point. I guess this is the reason why for the desperation. I would say that's pretty desperate. If you want to hold on to your identity and you want to be able to go back, think of the idea of ascension as breathing out and breathing in, okay? You expand, you contract, and then you go back. You expand again, you contract, and each time the expansion rate becomes further and further. It's a process of gathering and accumulating information in order to perpetuate life and to create things anew within it. All right? That is really the real process of life in this respect. But in this case, you're losing your identity and there's a freak out mode. Okay, you went too far left, you broke things, and then you continued so far left to the point where you could no longer get your way back. There's ways to get back. It's called bioregenesis. There's ways to heal and to restore things. But if you continue to go down that path, or the Anti-Kristiac path as it's communicated as being, then it gets to the point where there's no point of return. And that is the reason why any of these beings would be doing what they're doing. There's a finite aspect to their identity because the energy source has been cut off. So they're looking to use up all the energy they possibly can. What else do they have to lose? If you know what I'm saying. All right. This is the Metatronic Anti-Kristiac code configuration. Okay, when this happens, the manifest being is unable to fulfill the primal purpose and maintain the primal condition. This is the fall. The free will choice is allowed even if the choice leads to the choice of opposite expression. That is the Anti-Kristiac expression to the original divine intention and divine will of Source. Divine meaning, you can substitute the word divine with original because for some people this becomes like a little bit too religious. But you can substitute the idea of divine with the original. Okay? The original design. And the original design was meant for, just to emphasize this again, is for things to be expressed through love and joy. That's truly how you expand and grow and enjoy the process. It's all about joy, having this joy and love that fuels everything that you're doing. Because if you look at the design, you can see that there is a connection of all things because of the way the design is. Therefore, the objective is to affect all equally in the most beneficial way, right? The Anti-Kristiac expression is, let's see how far we can bend this thing till it breaks. And it does eventually break. And as you've heard, the results are not so good, and especially if you continue to go down that path, you basically cut yourself off completely, and there's really no point of return. Okay, so the fall due to Metatronic code configuration is the result of excessive misuse of free will choice. That is the opposite expression of divine intention or the original intention. This reaches a point, as we just said, at which it jeopardizes the perpetual motion, the eternal life, expression, and continued existence of cosmic order. Now, when manifest beings use their gift of free will, see, the gift that's given, because I hear this talk about the gift of being here on earth and all this other stuff, and I'm going, under these conditions, this is not a gift, because you can't truly express free will. It's extremely challenging. And when you are able to express free will, you express it in a very limited manner. Okay? It's not true free will. Okay? So when someone says that, that sounds to me like that has something to do with holographic inserts. All right? And when I mean by saying when someone says that, I'm talking about when people have these NDE experiences and they have this being that's supposed to be the creator of all things talk to them, and it says things like that, it's contrary to actually what this teaches, which allows me to consider the high possibility or most probability that that has to do with holographic inserts and programming, sort of like a very intense holodeck. I mean, this is a holographic experience, so I mean, a hologram within a hologram, that's not stretching it at all whatsoever. But done in a way that it makes the holodeck on Star Trek look like a Tinker Toy. Okay? So when manifest beings use their gift, that gift of free will choice, within the original intention, that state of at one-ment with Source can be known and embodied while within the manifest experience. Now, the fall, when an opposition expression of free will choice is made, results in reversals of flow and structure due to the alteration of the code or Christ code. This will manifest in the individual's experience as progressive, increasing experience of limitation, limited supply of energy and consciousness, and separation from Source and other beings. That's pretty intense. Think about that for a second or two. These are natural expressions of the physical reality of diminished flow through the central point of one's being. Through these experiences, one can be led to explore the choosing of the original divine intention. Now, here's where that's when you're looking to connect back to. I feel an emptiness inside me, right? How many people say, I feel void, I feel empty, I feel empty, I feel voided? And that response usually leads to seeking things out or praying. There's beings within this universal construct that can show you things, all right? You have to ask yourself this one simple question. If these beings use discernment, is this being asking to be worshipped? And if they're asking to be worshipped, do not pray to that being. Prayer simply means communication. But you need to be discerning about this, because any being that requires worship, Source has no need of worship. And never, ever, ever would it ever ask for it either, because it's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the experience that you're having within this holographic construct. You are equal with this being. Everything is of equality. That's the whole point at one-ment. And when you go outside this body, if you're able to experience that again, then you know exactly, okay, this is what it's always been. So you never want to appeal to a particular being that wants to be worshipped. Now, as we can see within the Bible, we have a whole lot of this worship me stuff. No. Just no. Talk to the hand. Anyhow, so, which leads to this exploration within oneself and just knowing because of this need to reconnect, which leads to an increasing joy experience of oneness and ever lessening limitation. The attitudes and responsibilities of mastery. Now, we have many, many identities. Being here on Earth within the first harmonic universe is not the whole of what we are. We have many identities throughout this construct taking place at the same time. Those identities go from incarnate identity to soul identity, oversoul identity, to avatar identity, to rishi identity. And just to give you an idea what a rishi is, a rishi is like being a blazing sun. Does that sound familiar to some? That means you are that at the same time that you're this. The difference is that there's been a frequency mutation and there's been alteration and a compound aspect of that alteration here to keep you from knowing your other identities. So that 12-dimensional current, which holds the divine blueprint, cannot be accessed. Now, there's ways to access it, but the point that I'm making is you're not just this. And other beings that have been playing you and saying that they created you and that you never existed except for this and serve that being, that's horseshit. That's not the truth. But that's what's been played. And it's worked. For a long time, it's worked. So the attitudes and responsibilities of mastery, because you are, is to bring that into you. But that's something for another time. Just to say that these responsibilities of mastery are crucial to understanding what kind of choices lead to what kind of outcomes. It's all about personal responsibility when it comes to this. Doesn't make it easy here, but this is what's required. And they provide the guidelines regarding choices, those choices that leads towards oneness and the freedom from limitation and separation associated with true mastery. Be it that you're an individuation of source, you have all that you need within you. And these freedom teachings will give you all you need to know about who you are in order to have that direct, true connection to source and who you really are within this construct. Okay, that being said, let's move on. So at the point of critical mass damage, now this goes into the idea, obviously, of what happens when you continue to go left, so to speak. At the point of critical mass damage, the Merkaba, that's something we're going to get into what the Merkaba is. The Merkaba spiral that brings energy from source into manifestation will reverse spin, having slowed to the point at which it matches the outflowing Merkaba spiral spin. Now, while both spirals can be affected, it is the loss of the incoming flow that creates the decisive disconnection. This means that there is no more energy from source to repair the damage that has been done. It is only a matter of time until the energy in the manifestation has been expended into form creation and entirely used up. This process is directly related to miasms and the expression of karma in one's reality. Now, I would recommend going to the KS dictionary and looking up miasms, all right, along with karma. Okay, if enough reverse polarity are present in a shield, the flow of primal life force currents is actually repelled, as the flow of currents from one level to another depends on proper polarities. Now, go back to the Partakai and look at the Partakai in respect to polarities, because everything relates to that. The repelling of primal life force currents causes the vertical axis, also known as the staff of the Merkaba, to break. Once the Merkaba staff is broken, the incoming electrical spiral can be reversed as its rotation is overwhelmed by the stronger rotation of the magnetic spiral. Now, again, going back to the Partakai, look at the two equal and opposite expressions. You see the Particum is what? Magnetic. You see the Partakai as what? Electrical. Like I said, everything relates to that. Always go back to that. The reversal of the incoming electrical Merkaba spiral causes the MAN-U, that is M-A-N capital U, window at the center to close permanently. As energy from source comes through inside and manifests through you, once the entry point is closed, it cannot be reopened. That's pretty intense right there, man. The being is left with a limited time of continued existence in manifest form, as all of the energy that remains within is expended. Just like we were saying, have been saying, you have a finite amount of energy at your disposal. And when we're talking about a particular form, such as like the human body, it has been so degenerated and altered to the point where it has a very short lifespan, right? Now, this can continue to happen in a fallen state, as mentioned before, at which point the being doesn't hold enough quantum or energy to be able to hold form, and basically simply just goes back to Partakai. Or another way to express that is that it goes back to space dust. Okay, at that point, there is a reversal of polarity, and all of the expended energy is drawn back inwards towards the center via the magnetic spirals. Since this energy has nowhere to go, being disconnected from source, it progressively grows denser and denser. This is where we need to go back to the idea of the black hole system. All right? This is how these black hole systems become the way that they become, because of using all the energy around it and other systems in order to perpetuate the finite existence. This is what happens. It grows denser and denser, creating the condition of molecular compaction. There is a point of critical mass compaction, at which point the seed atom, which is known as the azure, implodes under the pressure of its own weight. The particles and antiparticles at the core of the seed atom undergo internal fusion and annihilate each other. The final stage consists of internal fission, causing the template to shatter. This is the space dust thing, okay? Goes back to space dust, and the Merkaba field to totally collapse. At this point, the manifestation has completely ceased to exist in its original form, and the units of consciousness of which it was composed have no memory of that manifestation. Wow, wow, wow. See, there's where the desperation is. Beings had to know this is what was going to happen. And so they've been double time doing everything they can to exhaust any resource they can in order to postpone this. And rightly so. I mean, this is like panic station, right? Big time. Now, Source retains a memory imprint of that aspect of creation up to the point of that reversal. From the point of when the template shatters, right? The Merkaba field totally collapses, right? And the consciousness, those units of consciousness, which was part of the composition of this manifestation, there's no longer any memory connected to any of it. Source retains a memory imprint of that aspect of creation up to the point of that reversal. And that memory will be externally retained. The units of consciousness of which the original manifestation was made will continue to exist as individual particle. So, in other words, when this happens, the particle is basically all swept up. That is the result of that template shattering and so on and so forth, right? Consciousness no longer having any memory of that manifestation. And in that which in the same level of creation that it happens, all right? In other words, as an example, if this were to happen, which it does constantly in harmonic universe number 1, which we're in, the particle will be assembled by other beings into new forms that do have the potential for ascension. If you didn't have that other choice, that expressive choice, which is known as Anti-Kristiac expression, this would never happen. And I'm kind of like in the favor of not having that crazy choice, because all it does is lead to destruction. There's potential to be able to renew yourself and get reconnected, that which is the process of ascension. But there's also a possibility of you not making it, part of your identity not making it. And unfortunately, because of this choice that's been made available, it's caused a lot of suffering. And the state of consciousness that this has created for certain beings has manifested in what is known as being hell worlds. Yes, folks, that is a real thing. It is consciousness that creates that. This condition has allowed for manifestation to develop to the point of the antithesis of love and joy, where people are in their suffering and they can't seem to get out of their own suffering. I say, I don't want this choice because I don't like what it does. But ultimately, it just allows for the antithesis of the things that we should be experiencing through love and joy. And I don't know about you, but living in harsh conditions and living under a situation that creates torment and pain and suffering, and then having the experience of love and joy, just guess which one I'm going to choose. So I rather not have the one that sucks. All right. So that being said, the next video I'm going to follow up with is the fallen. Those beings that initially started the war and decided to go left and become Democrats. You know, that was the pun that I was using every time I used the word left, right? So, because there's a whole lot to be said about that. And it's not about, that's a joke, obviously. You know, they have no idea what they've gotten themselves into. Yeah, bad choices and bad part of the design, because omnipolarity is the reason for that choice, by the way. Yeah. So, yeah, I need to alter that design. That's a design flaw. It doesn't work. Of course, at the time that it was created, it was about seeing whether or not it did work. Because, no, this is not about perfection. It's like, oh, I thought it was all perfectly figured out from the beginning. Apparently not. And that's kind of the way it is, and that's the way it's always been. So, now that we know that it doesn't work, let's get rid of it. So there it is. All right. Next video, the fallen.